Hi and welcome to another episode of Undercurrent. My name is Lucy Marchant and tonight we'll be revisiting some of the best stories of season 16. Our first story for tonight is about internet safety. It's a tool that we use almost every day. As adults, we're able to navigate safely, searching for what we want and ignoring what we don't want. But children, however, are not so aware of the risks of the online world. We spoke to Paul Lifferland, a former police officer who is now on a mission to educate kids about online safety.
Talking about parents, what do you think their role? How can they protect their kids and secure safety while they go online?
The best thing to do is, in my opinion, it's just education as often as you can. Sit down, speak with your kids. If they want to go on certain networks, sit down and discuss it with them, why they want to use them. If they are going to use them, sit down, get to know the settings, get to know how they work, and build an environment with your kids so you can grow together in that environment and hopefully get them to understand how they work and, more importantly, to be using them appropriately and safely as well.
If kids are listening to you now, how would you explain to them or educate them to be aware when they can feel the danger when they are talking online or when they are using the social media?
The best thing I can suggest, and how I educate my primary school and my senior kids, is treat your online world with the same level of respect you would your real world. If you're approached by a stranger in the real world, naturally you feel cautious, you feel protective of yourself. But a lot of our kids aren't doing that online because it's a different environment. They might be sitting in their bedroom, so they feel more secure. So my biggest piece of advice is to treat your online world with the same level of respect that you do your real world.
If you want to be more specific about giving their own informations, about uploading their own photos, how they can be careful about that, settings, playing with the privacy settings.
Yes. So as I said, any of the networks they're using, get in, know the settings, how they work. But it's also assessing. Most of the social networking is, in particular, they're so popular because of the information that we provide. This is how they make a lot of money, for the information that we're pumping in, not only as kids but as adults as well. So if we can always assess the information we're providing, and I'll give an example, something as simple as a photo of you in school uniform can tell me so much about you. Obviously where you go to school, because I can see your crest. I can tell your age, your gender, and obviously the environment where you're living as well. So it's important we just assess how much information we give. We can still take photos, we can still post them, but we assess how much information is within those photos that can minimise our exposure throughout the entire environment of the online world.
If we want to get to-point tips for kids when they go online, either social media or Google or any other website, what top 10 tips?
The top tips for me would be simple stuff like never talk to strangers online. Always be aware of the information that you are sharing and assess your own information. Something as simple as checking your own footprint, your own online footprint regularly. And you can do that through Google. You can search your own name. You can even do what's called a reverse image search on Google. So you can grab one of your photos off your Facebook account, drag that, drop it into a Google search engine, and it'll show you whether or not that photo is anywhere else around on the internet. So little things like that. Communicate with your parents, communicate with your educators if you are feeling concerned. Not so much for the predatory side of things as well, but cyberbullying. If kids are being picked on, it's important they speak to someone, or if they've seen someone being picked on, they should say something as well, because 73% of our kids won't say a thing to anyone.
As internet would have some danger on kids, it's the same for adults. What do you think? How do you think adults should go online and safely?
Adults tend to take a lot more risk than our kids, merely because of probably the environments they're working in, because kids are usually big into social networking and stuff like that, whereas adults, we're obviously into email now, we're banking, we're also working eBay, Gumtree, so we're doing a lot more activity online. Again, it's just about being aware of the systems we're using. simple stuff like, scams alone in this state are massive. So if we are using Gumtree as an example, or eBay, it's important that we look into the legitimacy of the sale. Never transfer money directly into another person's bank account. Make sure that we always use an escrow service such as PayPal, so at least we can guarantee our funds aren't going to go directly to someone's bank account and it's gone forever. So again, it's just about assessing and understanding the networks we're using. Google is a brilliant resource. So if you're unsure, if you feel suspicious about a scam, about being contacted by someone online, or you're not sure of a particular website, then just ask that question in Google. There's bound to be a forum, there's bound to be someone out there discussing it who may have had the same issues as you, or more importantly, may have fallen into a trap that you can avoid simply from just investigating online.
There's a choir group in Perth called the Spirits of the Streets Choir, a singing group whose doors are open to anyone, giving a means for the socially disadvantaged to reconnect with the community. Angela McDonald went to watch one of the rehearsals.
Well, people are just coming in like we do every Tuesday, and everybody just has a cup of tea, catches up with everybody about how their week has been, and then at 2 o'clock we'll start off doing warm-ups and get into some singing.
I trick people into singing. Yeah. I think that's what we do. We just say, do a bit of this, do a bit of that, warm-ups and things, and then, hey, suddenly you're singing and you didn't realise it. It's like climbing a little hill, and then when you get to the top you see a bit further, you know, and I think they all go through that journey, and when they all sing together, it's a very special thing, because it's the energy, the team spirit, that kind of thing, makes it all work really well. I'm going to sing that again, and people might want to join me. You can sing, and I can sing, so let's all sing together. Lift your voice and pass the song along. Sing your joy, sing your love, we can sing forever. Lift your voice and pass the song. You learn a lot of lessons at school, and not all good. So I guess it's just giving people the opportunity to try, to have a voice, and to try in a non-threatening situation like it is here.
And it's because of the choir giving me that confidence and taking away that feeling of isolation and making me realise that the mental health issues were from working when I should really be winding down because of my age.
Bernard actually started the choir, and I came along. I actually started coming in. I brought a young man who has autism, and we were looking for an activity that he wanted to engage in, and he just absolutely loves singing. And we've been coming now for almost 8 years, and he has performed in front of hundreds of people, probably thousands actually, over the time that we've been running, and just achieved so much and loves it. He's made good friendships, and very connected, and that's what it's all about for a lot of our people. You know, they come in, and whatever's going on in their lives, they join the choir, and it's like they make friends, they feel supported, and all of that stuff in their life just melts away, and they find a new joy and confidence.
It's easy, but there is freedom within. There is freedom without trying to catch the deluge in a paper cup. There are battles ahead, many battles are lost. You never see me. Hey now, don't dream it's over. Hey now, when the world comes in, they come through the wall between us.
I've been coming to choir since for about nearly 4 years now, and it's been great. I've got this lady, her name is Rita, and you're going to be on TV here, Rita. And Rita, I got really into choir about 2 years ago.
Do you love it, Rita?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
The company of each other and gain confidence from each other. And I'm totally staggered that these people are prepared to get up in front of corporate audiences, any audience, and talk or introduce a song and talk about themselves. And I believe that's because they feel confident in the people behind them.
We virtually take the word dis out of disability, which is really bloody good.
There's a new proposal on the table where low-income earners can opt out of compulsory superannuation. Will this encourage saving or will it encourage reckless spending? We took to the streets of Perth to see what you think.
Low-income people earning less than $37,000 a year can choose to opt out from contributing to their superannuation fund. Today, we asked the people of Perth about what they think about this.
I suppose so, yes. Probably they need their income for other things, really, for now.
No, I think we should definitely contribute to your super fund for the long term.
Yeah, well, I definitely think that they should have a choice over whether they get their super or whether it goes into a super fund. Because obviously, if they're on a low income, it's going to be hard to pay for things if half of it's going in towards super.
Do you think that with an extra $60 weekly by not contributing to the fund, solve the problems faced by the low-income group?
No, it won't, but it will help.
Yeah, that would be helpful.
No, I don't reckon $60 isn't enough a week. You know, it's better that it's in super. Definitely, because in the long run you'll be better off.
Yeah, well, I definitely think that would help them out. An extra $60 would definitely go really far.
Do you think that this will be a problem for the group of people as they are unable to retire due to the lack of funds, and will this create a burden for taxpayers in the future?
Yes, probably, but they have to live in the now and get through now. So I imagine they'll think that their circumstances may change later.
I don't know, it's so confusing. On one hand, it's a good idea. On the other hand, it's a bad idea. You can go either way with it.
A problem for taxpayers? I don't see how it could make a problem for taxpayers.
I don't think so.
I don't think it'll be a problem for anyone. It is their choice, entirely up to them. If they want to have savings and retire early, then that's up to them to save.
People earning less than $37,000 are usually university students, the younger people. Do you think that by allowing them to pull out of contributing from their super fund will lead to more problems for them in the future?
No, because I think they've got a lot of earning potential long term.
No, because as they get older and more experienced, they get higher paying jobs.
I think they need to look at the big picture. It's definitely a long-term thing.
If they want to have more fun while they're younger and not have to worry about their super, then that is entirely up to them. There are a lot of people who will be a bit more responsible and they will think about their future a bit more, and they will have the choice to put their money into the super. But at the end of the day, you should be given a choice.
The people of Perth have a mixed feelings about whether people should be given a choice whether they want to contribute to their super funds. I'm Renida Azman reporting for Undercurrent.
Stay with us on West TV. We will be back very shortly after a commercial break. Welcome back to Undercurrent. Earlier this year, a permit to build a 44-storey tower in South Perth was approved. The residents were suspicious of the approval procedures, so they took the matter to court and they won. Angela McDonald with the report.
Thank you for joining WTV Undercurrent.
Pleasure.
Now, you've come to the attention of a lot of people because you've had a Supreme Court hearing and you've won what you were putting into the Supreme Court. Can you tell us about this?
We called it the South Perth Peninsula Action Group. This part of the street of Mill Point Road leads down to the old mill, and it's commonly called the Peninsula. The Supreme Court action was really against the use of the buildings. The judgment came down that the building is supposed to be, under the objectives of the town planning scheme, should be predominantly a place where someone comes to work, not a residential building. So the whole scheme is based around trying to get enough people to come into work in the area to garner support for a train station. So that's what the whole town planning scheme is based on, that it's encouraging people to come to work. And what this building is predominantly a residential building. Our concern of all these mega towers that are being proposed in South Perth is it's the height, but it's the amount of people and the lack of study that has been done around that. So all of the studies that were done for the town planning scheme were about medium rise. So the infrastructure needs were based on medium rise infill, but mostly commercial. One of the studies said categorically that all of the infrastructure, things like roads and water and sewage and electricity, should be upgraded immediately before any development started. None of that has happened. We don't have in this area a local planning strategy or a housing strategy, and we still don't have a traffic study. So there is no way that the council has done enough work to all of a sudden allow or encourage high-rise in this area. The city, from all of those original studies, is not capable of handling that sort of influx of residents, more residents.
And so what sort of feedback are your findings coming your way now that the Supreme Court ruling has been made?
We've had enormous support from all over South Perth, in fact all over Perth, from people who are suffering the same consequences with ill thought out and improper planning. So we've had enormous support from residents. We may have had a lot of anti-support, dissatisfaction from the developers, which is understandable. They thought they were going to be allowed to build enormous high-rises, and those investors are probably very upset that they might not now be allowed to do that.
And so if they do go ahead and modify their structures, how will the relationship continue with your Peninsula Group and developers?
Well, as long as, look, we're more than happy for development to happen here. We were, in fact, really excited about the revitalisation, as long as it's done within the law. The developers are not above the law. They can't just build high-rise because they think it's a good idea. They're not the ones driving town planning in South Perth, and they shouldn't be the ones deciding what our future streetscape should look like.
So step by step, where are you at now?
The next step is really for the developer, because they now have to modify their plans in accordance with the law, and they'll come back to JDAP with that, and then we have an opportunity to make deputations again. But you know, we're more than happy for them to build a development here. It just has to be within the law.
And so with the Supreme Court hearing and the findings, has it set a precedent?
It certainly has. There's a lot of groups within Perth who are suffering the same fate by these JDAP approvals, and they're very, very pleased with this Supreme Court decision, because it's vindicated our concerns that JDAP are not listening to the community. They look at one individual building, not where it sits in the community and not how it blends in with the streetscape. They just look at one building in isolation. So it's not proper planning. It's not what planning should be. Town planning says that new buildings should blend in with the existing character of a community, and quite often these are ugly, revolting, zero setback things that bear no resemblance to what's already here. Well, we've got a fairly large group of supporters. We don't have a very formal membership, but we've got over 1,000 people on our email list who have asked to be kept informed and want to help. So there's, more than 1,000 people, and then there's the wider DAP affected groups, and there's 30 of those across Perth who've been very supportive as well.
The state's credit rating has been downgraded, and the government is looking to privatise Western Power to reduce state debt. The Australian Services Union think that this will increase prices and lower the quality of services. Tibor went to find out more.
Hi, Jill. We are in the wonderful Perth.
Yes.
And we got in the background Western Power. And Western Power is the next venture of the state government to sell. So what do you think about this sale? Why it's happening and what is happening?
Okay, from our members' perspective, the sale of Western Power really is about this state government trying to fix their state debt that they caused. And it's also about Colin Barnett wanting to get elected at the next state election. They've caused the problem. They now feel like they need to just sell the assets in order to fix the problem. And that's not a solution to our state debt, and it certainly isn't a solution for our members because it potentially could see our members lose substantial jobs because if it's sold to a private company, basically what will happen is that private company will only consider the profit margin. And so what they're doing is a short-term fire sale that will, at the end of the day, mean that prices will rise, that standards will drop, and we potentially could see jobs going offshore, admin, customer service jobs that are easily offshored in a state where we have rising unemployment. That's unacceptable to our members.
So you think Colin Barnett is that naive? He thinks the public of Perth and West Australia will take his claim on falling electricity prices if it's private and achieving success. So, and he gonna be elected because people eating this thing, what he say?
Well, I'm hoping that the West Australian public will not actually be fooled by these statements. I'm hoping that West Australian public will come on board with the ASU and ETU campaign to stop the privatisation of West Australian assets. We have a campaign currently running called the Use Your Power campaign, and I would encourage your watchers to go on and look at that website and look at the Facebook page. There is a great deal of information on there from our brother and sister unions over east where privatisation just has not worked.
So what is the plan? How do you want to mobilise our audience or the population of Perth to don't let the government to sell the assets or infrastructure?
All right, so the first stage for us is for the community of Western Australian people to go onto the Use Your Power website and engage in sending an email to their MP and telling them that this state government does not have a mandate to sell Western Power or any of our assets.
What do you mean not have the mandate? I mean, Colin Barr said he's been elected, he is a democratically elected government, and he do whatever he feels good for the electorate. So he thinks he got mandate for anything and everything.
Of course, but that doesn't make it true. So he will, obviously, there is a state election next year. He has not previously gone to the electorate to say this is what he is planning to do. It's only recently that he's come out and said, look, we have to sell Western Power. We think that's where we're at. He and Dr.
So what is the sort of success rate you think is necessary to have the support? How many people you need to have, or how many people need to sign petitions for the government to be realised that's what's going on?
So this is a campaign that's going to build over a period of time. It's in its infancy at the moment. The state election is not until next year, but it is building. It's building substantially. And over the next 12 months, we are going to ask the West Australian public to go and tell their politicians that this is unacceptable, to a point where hopefully they are all listening to what the West Australian public says. Ultimately, though, Tibor, it's what happens at the election. And if the West Australian public vote a Barnett government back in with this mandate, then we have been unsuccessful. But I am very, very hopeful that the West Australian public will not do that.
Jill, good luck for your fight, and I will hope the people will understand what's the stake.
Sure, thank you very much for your time.
Rona Oakley, a woman who spent much of her life caring for other people's needs. She worked hard so that West Australian consumers could have rights and be protected. She recently passed away in her 90s. Undercurrent put together a tribute to Rona.
Something really memorable about Rona is that she presents as this very genteel, softly spoken lady. And the only thing that I guess shows the true Rona is this mischievous smile and this glint in the eye. It seems from an early age that Rona stood up for the little person, the person who was unfairly treated.
Rona used to regale us with stories of where she'd come from, her past, but she would also hook those back to the presentations that were being made to the various nominations that had come through in the CP Awards. And you could see from her life history where she had come from a fairly poor background. She had come from an area where she would assist the community, and the community needs were always being put to the forefront. And it was amazing the way in which those, I guess, endeavours that she'd had over the many years were reflected in the people who've been nominated through for the Rona Oakley Award.
Rona's speech, it's often the thing that most people remembered in any given year. They would, and regular attendees would anticipate what she was going to say in her yearly speech.
People are beavering away every day to try and help those who find that this world which we live in, that this sophisticated, crazy world we live in, to help them have an even playing field and help them cope with the difficulties.
Constant approaches to government departments, bombarding them and getting the services in there, because we were aware that the royalties were being paid for education and we were aware they were not being spent in the Pilbara. People, through no fault of their own, find themselves in difficult financial circumstances, for one, or bad legal situations, and you have these people working away in these offices, helping them, getting them out of their problems.
The thing that sticks out for me about Rona more recently is a greater appreciation of the loving partnership with her husband Ron. I think in many ways that Ron and Rona have enabled each other through their life and enabled each other to excel and commit and grow, but always as a partnership, and each has enabled the other to make a special contribution to the community.
I came to think of Rona as a surrogate grandmother. It was so lovely spending time with her. I'll especially remember the time she was asking me about my weekend, and I mentioned I'd been to a Kiss concert, and then I said, do you know who Kiss is? And she said, do I know who Kiss is? I've met them.
Rona gave me a platform into which I came and have spent the last 30 years working in the community sector. For the centre itself, Rona definitely was the driving force behind establishing the centre. Many of the aspects of the centre today I can easily attribute to Rona.
My memory of Rona is always wanting to acknowledge
the history of the centre
Yeah.
and the important people in the function of the centre in the past and currently.
Different things going on at the centre. She would come and discuss these issues and find out what she could do about some of them. So, yes, for me too, Rona has been a mentor and a leader.
She wasn't a qualified lawyer, and those who my colleagues were. She wasn't young, and we were still very young. She used wisdom sometimes where we were a little bit fixated perhaps on intellect. And I think slowly but surely we found ourselves learning a lot from her.
The Consumer Protection Awards are named after Rona, because clearly Rona had a passion for equity and fairness. But there was also a lovely element of Rona that was unassuming. It didn't seek the limelight. It's about doing things with determination, but doing so not for the reward, but for making a difference.
Thanks for watching this week's episode of Undercurrent. Make sure you tune in next week for more of our best stories. Take care.